Welcome to Empowered Ease, the podcast where we challenge the patriarchy by inspiring women to take ownership of their health, mind, body, and soul. My name is Jen Olinger. I'm your host. I'm a holistic coach, a critical care nurse, and founder of the Moonflower Collective. Each episode, you'll hear from incredible women, healers, health practitioners, coaches, nurses, and pioneers making a difference. Together, we'll delve into their personal stories, the inspiration behind their work, and how women heal and thrive in community. Discover how by uniting our strengths and sharing our journeys, we transform not only ourselves, but the future of health and wellness. So tune in, be inspired, and empower yourself alongside our vibrant community of women. This is Empowered Ease. Let's embark on this journey of communal healing together. Welcome back to Empowered Ease. I'm Jen Olinger, delighted to bring you another episode dedicated to showcasing inspiring women who are making a difference. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce my guest, Molly Rose. Molly is a dynamic leader and coach with over a decade of experience in promoting creative and meaningful social impact. Her expertise lies in fostering resilience through relationship and leadership development. So Molly's worked with a vast array of individuals, teams, resource partners, and community groups, helping them craft thoughtful, inclusive strategies that foster transformational change. Whether through individual coaching, group facilitation, or innovative strategy design, she has successfully guided hundreds of community impact leaders to create meaningful leadership and program designs. Both in the nonprofit world and in her service as a development coach, central to Molly's approach is the liberation from limiting and oppressive narratives. With a robust background in somatics, experience design, social impact, and creative facilitation, she empowers others to explore their inner wisdom, resilience, and aliveness in all service of personal and communal transformation. So Molly excels in supporting those committed to their own liberation and deconstructing internalized oppressive narratives. She partners with individuals from privileged identities to explore somatic awareness related to crucial social issues like class and race, striving to build an embodied anti-racist culture that brings cultural values to the forefront. Her impressive work and collaborations include leading organizations such as Burning Man Project, Clowns Without Borders, UNHCR, TEDx Bushwick, and many more. She's grounded in learning lineage that incorporates the teachings of the Strozzi Institute for Somatics, and I apologize for this pronunciation, Resma Menachem Somatic Abolitionism, and many other influential programs. So without further ado, let's welcome Molly Rose to Empowered Ease. Well, welcome to Empowered Ease, Molly. How are you?
Thank you so much, Jen. I'm doing really well today, and I'm so excited to have come to the moment of meeting you and connecting for the podcast.
Me too. I kind of checked out your website a little bit, and I don't know if you guys haven't been on. She has a beautiful website. I love it. I'm in the process of kind of talking about having someone like redo and I forget what they call it, kind of like make everything rebranded, like brand everything kind of cohesively. And so she's like, pick out websites you love and yours. So I'm like, oh, I love her website. So good website.
Literally so affirming. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So tell me a little bit to my listeners a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I'm a somatic coach, and I actually got to somatic coaching pretty recently out of a career pivot from 10 years in nonprofit management. And really, it seems different, like doing the whole nonprofit world and working with clients in a one-on-one sort of support capacity. But when I think about how I ended up here, it kind of always circles back to something that's been threading the needle for me since I started having a career, which is, it sounds really cheesy, but it's like a deep yearning to participate in our shared liberation. And I think one thing that I learned so much over the 10 years, kind of working at social impact and arts and culture, was was that we can have a really liberated perspective and that we can create relationships that are really generative and community driven in pretty much any environment. And so, in my path through that, I've landed at just recognizing that in order to do what kind of the world is asking us to do, kind of a cultural transformation, turning towards a way for us to continue to be in a relationship with this planet, that organizations are made up of people, and that I really love and feel so satisfied working with people who have a big drive to have an impact on the world and on their community, and like helping them on an individual level to build more ground and like have more space is something that just really satisfies me. So no, I'm a somatic coach.
I love that. So you're working with like high achieving people with big dreams, trying to make big transformation. Am I hearing that correctly?
You know, the word big is there, but I think the word that's more true, even for me, is like deep. People, it doesn't always look big, like the kind of work that my clients.
Can you repeat that? I think it like cut out a little bit when you said the word. So say the word again.
Oh, yeah. The word that I think might be even more true is deep, or like
Deep. I love that. Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
the kind of work that people are up to.
Powerful.
Yeah, the people that I've started supporting, that I'm up to, it runs the gamut from folks that have kind of a really active leadership goal, or sorry, role in the sustainability world or like in climate, but um, for me, it's just as meaningful. You know, I also have clients that work in education, that are accountants, that work in just kind of the jobs that need to get done. But they have this drive, this yearning, this, whether they're an artist or a healer or an activist, like they have a sense that what they're doing and how they are being in relationship in the world is something that can kind of make a difference. I'm doing air quotes right now for the podcast people.
So people committed to living deeper, people committed to what, no matter what they're doing it with a deeper conviction or like connecting with that like deeper part of themselves is what I'm hearing. Is that
Yeah,
more accurate?
that's exactly right. And a phrase that I like to use, and that you'll see if anybody visits my website, is like values aligned behavior.
Oh,
People
I
that are
love
really
that.
interested in cultivating a body and a capacity to be in choice and really make choices and have behaviors that are in alignment with their values.
I love that. So when you say shared liberation, what do you mean by that?
Yes. So there are so many ways that people define liberation. And one of my teachers offered me a definition that I love. That is the one that I use now. And it's kind of a Buddhist definition of liberation, which means freedom from the pairs. So it's like we can feel like we're in a big binary, like everything is either black or white, or good or bad, or right or wrong. And it can create a lot of like, it can bring up a lot of stuff. And so when I say liberation, meaning freedom from the pairs, meaning like freedom from the binary and more tolerance for the sort of complicated, nuanced gray area, which is where we're spending most of our life and where most of the most important decisions are being made.
Mm-hmm. I love that. There was hasn't come up for me so much recently, but I feel like last year the concept of duality came up for me so much. How so many things are so many things at the same time. They're the good, the bad, they're the black and the white at the same time. And that was a theme that came up for me a lot last year that I like to revisit. So I like that you said that, because that's kind of what I'm thinking of, this like it's never either or, it's always all, like it's
Yeah.
so much. Okay, well, I love that. So when clients come to you, what kind of what can they expect to gain from coaching with you?
Well, do you think I feel like a lot of people also kind of have heard of somatics, but don't actually like there are again so many definitions for
Yeah,
what
yeah, explain
somatic
your definition. I just had like
is.
a somatic coach on a few weeks ago, so I'm like just jumping ahead though. So yeah, explain to us about somatics first. Thank you, Molly.
Yeah, of course. And like again, this answer would be different, depending on who you ask. But
Yeah.
as I work with somatics, soma is a word that it is the Greek root meaning like the alive organism in its holistic self, something like
Mm.
that. And so the soma is really the domain of like our thoughts, our feelings, behaviors, our urges, the beliefs that we carry about how we are and how the world works, and also the energetic dynamic that we bring to relationships. So when I'm working with folks, often the things that they're seeking to transform in their life are around those topics.
Okay.
So what was the question again?
We were just talking about what your definition of somatics is to start with.
Yeah, so that's the definition of somatics that I thought.
Okay, I love that. Okay. And then I was asking you what kind of transformation or changes that people work on or get from your coaching.
Great. A lot of the types of transformations, and I'm just kind of letting the question land because there's a
Mhm.
few ways I could answer it. But things that I see, um,
I love your intentionality with your words, by the way. I like from the get-go, like I started doing this new introduction for the show, which anyone who listens to it knows there's a new introduction for the last two. So I sent Molly the thing of it, and she said, "You're like the first person to like revise it and send it back," which I loved because it was the words you used were very intentional. And then I noticed speaking to you, you're very intentional about your words. So thank you. And yeah, you want to tell us anything about that? I would explain that a little
yeah,
bit.
I'm smiling because that's not the first time that I've gotten that feedback. And it's true. I am really intentional with language and honestly, in my own path. Figuring out how I want to be and who I am in relationships with other people. I I laugh because I think about like ex-partners um when I was first really landing how important language was to me and how much it mattered to me to really say exactly what I was trying to say. And I would have partners, this is just a quick story, who like God bless their hearts would have to sit there in silence for 2, 3, 5, 6 minutes while I'm sort of gathering the courage and the clarity to spit it out, whatever it is that I'm trying to say to them. Um, and honestly, that's a good example of some of the kinds of stuff that I work with my clients. I think people in a broad sense are seeking transformation around the dynamic that they bring to relationships, whether that's in their families or with their spouses or in their organizations. And also, there's kind of this nebulous thing of like, um, on the way to leadership development, often there's a step that I've had within myself and that I've seen in other people of um, having to reconnect with your authentic information and having to build more trust in yourself and your sort of somatic intelligence. One of my teachers, Resma Menicum, talks about the 7 bodily intelligences, and cognitive intelligence is only one of them. And it's like overblown. I'll go ahead and say it's overblown. It's overused, at least in the United States, in our society. And the
Mhm.
other intelligences in our bodies are so diminished. And so I'm often working with folks just to reconnect with the intelligence that's already there.
Okay, so to get more touched, more aligned, more intentional with the way they present themselves and interact in the world.
Yeah, and like, something that might be familiar that I'll just say in case it resonates with anybody is like, often we have an image of ourselves of how tolerant or how patient or how strategic and thoughtful we might be. And then we have these moments where the pressure really comes in and we just make a move without even thinking about it. And it's not the one that we wanted to make. Maybe we like lash out, or we disengage or put up a wall. And then afterwards, we're thinking about it and we're like, dang, I wish I just had that moment. Like, I wish I had been able to just take a minute, take a pause, like take a breath, think about what I actually want to do, instead of just doing that reaction. And that pause moment is really a lot of what sometimes we get up to in somatic coaching, because we're basically in a sandbox where we try on and explore a lot of different, I'm using air quotes again, moves. And we really do it for the sake of slowing everything down and being in an environment that is, um, for the sake of exploring and bringing an actual curiosity to the self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I feel like a lot of coaching is helping people to develop that relationship with themselves in an intentional way. And I love that. Yeah. Um, okay. Well, you have like some really fun things on your resume that I want to ask you about, even though I know you're not here
Yeah,
to
let's talk about it.
that.
I love
So,
everything I've ever done.
so fun. So the first one I wanted to ask you about was Clowns Without Borders. So I don't know how to say it because I know there's a way to say it, but are you a clown?
Am I a professional?
Are you? Yeah. Well, do you like? So I had a roommate who would go to South America, and I don't know if it's the same organization. It was with the one Patch Adams is involved in.
That's Gesundheit. I
Is that
also
the
used
same
to work
one?
for. It's not, but I did work for Patch Adams.
So one of my old roommates did too, and it's like I didn't realize this at the time, and now I do. But like being a clown is its own has a huge community, and it does really positive, amazing things. And I had no idea. And she kind of like introduced me a little bit to that world, so it was so cool to see that on there. It, like brought me back to her, and she's an amazing person. So yeah, tell me about this.
Yeah, I really love clowns. And you're right, like there's a huge community of humanitarian clowns, people that do clowning in sort of
Yeah.
a service environment. And yeah, my first real job was for about 5.5 years. I was the director and various roles for this very small organization called Clowns Without Borders USA. There's 22 different chapters of Clowns Without Borders around the world. And basically, it's all just working in partnership, only going where they are invited with either an individual or an organization that's local and living in the area where they're going to be touring, and then organizing free performance and workshop circus tours in refugee camps, conflict zones, natural disaster sites, and with communities, especially families, but all people experiencing conflict around the world. And that is an amazing organization. Y'all, I do recommend looking them up, throwing them a few bucks. They're a volunteer driven organization. And really, I learned about somatics through those clown tours in a way that at the time I didn't have language for. But the thing that's so amazing about clowning in refugee camps and with communities on the run from war, or communities that are, strategically under-resourced and undervalued, is that basically the clowning does, I'll just say two things. One is it creates a wonderful opportunity to invert a power dynamic that's very unusual when people are receiving services and sort of in survival mode. Because the clowns are often the first kind of foreigners that are coming into communities, not trying to teach anything, not trying to give anything or show anything. Like the clown is really the bottom of the totem pole. And so it creates this opportunity for real human contact, for like real connection and relationship, for the second thing, which is like resilience through laughter. And just
and connection.
yeah, if there's one thing that Clowns Without Borders has taught me, it's that like a it's that like the difference between experiencing a crisis and potentially, developing PTSD and like carrying that with you for a long time, and having the support to move through an experience in the moment and ask for and receive some things that you might need. Like it's a razor's edge. It doesn't take much to create the circumstances for a moment of wonder, a moment of awe, a moment of relaxation or levity, which is critical for our well-being as individuals and communities, by the way. Like, it's in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's critical that we
Mhm.
have those moments.
Yeah.
And they're so much more accessible than we think that they are, like at all times.
Yeah, even in the worst of times, right? That's kind of like
Exactly.
the the message. I love that. That's so cool that you were with that organization. I love just being able to talk about that organization on this podcast because I don't know if I would have remembered it. Like, that's so cool.
Yay.
Okay, so other wait, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I just said, yay, I'm glad you brought it up.
Oh yeah. Another interesting thing I saw on your podcast was you were on the board for Burning Man. Or
I
something related with Burning Man?
Yep, I was never on the board for Burning Man project. I was an employee at Burning Man.
Okay.
I worked full time for Burning Man for also about 5.5 years
Oh,
as a
cool.
manager for Burners Without Borders, which is also a great program. So I was basically a community organizer for the wing of the Burning Man community that's passionate about civic action in their hometowns. So it was really like it was the kind of the next natural thing because I'm not a clown. I'm not a professional clown. I'm very clown
Are
affiliated, but
you a burner?
I'm a burner. Yeah.
You are? Okay.
I am
I'm
a
not,
burner.
but I had a roommate that was, and it is another thing, different roommate, surprisingly, but it is again one of those things that like it has its own community that comes with it, and people keep in touch like for years. So it's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, my Burning Man community are super close friends of mine, but if it was a natural progression from Clowns Without Borders because I was so clear about the impact of kind of relational community building, community driven service projects, and I kind of like was itching to support that in more than just with clowning and performance, even though that is an amazing avenue for it.
How cool. I love that. There was one acronym on there I did not recognize. I was going to ask you about because I said it, but I didn't know what it meant. So the UNHCR, what does that stand for?
Oh, United Nation for Humanitarian Resources or something. Yikes. Let's just double check that because people in the humanitarian world will be like, who is she?
I think you are in the humanitarian world and have earned that spot. So it's like your resume says you've done some considerable work. Okay, so
I
while
was
you're
close. It's United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. So basically, like the context of UNHCR on my resume is that they were a collaborator with us for some of our Clowns Without Borders tours in Kenya in the Kakuma refugee camp, which is like one of the largest refugee camps in the world. And most refugee camps are run by these international organizations that have, you know, their mission of providing transitional housing for people on the run from war. And UNHCR is like a really big guy in that area.
Oh, cool. Is it involved in like the sanctuary cities? Anything about that?
I have no idea.
No worries. I'll look up later. Okay, so then I saw TEDx Bushwick, which I love TED and TEDx. So tell me a little bit about that.
I love this. This is fun for me. Yeah, TEDx was
Fun for me too.
was so fun. And that was actually one of the first things I did when I became the administrative director for Clowns Without Borders, because I was coming in with this feeling of people need to know about this. I didn't know about it until I found out about it. And then I was just really driven to, I mean, when I joined that organization, they were entirely volunteer run. And I was like, listen, I'm willing to work for free for like a couple of years if we are planning on becoming a paid staff of some kind of sustainable office, because this is a dream job for me. And so the director at the time, Tim Cunningham, and the board, they were great. They were super on board. I was like green enough to that they could afford me and really, really energetic.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, one of the first things that I did was pitch that TEDx talk that I called Resilience Through Laughter, and it really was all about just how real it is that through simple human contact with very little infrastructure, you can really create transformation in people's experience and in the energy of a place. And that also took me on a path to creative placemaking.
That is cool. So tell me a little bit more about your background in this creative placemaking, because I saw that mentioned a lot on your website. So tell me a little bit more about what that is. And
Oh, maybe I don't think it's on my website, but it's probably on my LinkedIn. And yeah, basically, creative placemaking is another sort of niche world that I found a couple of years ago that, similarly to somatics, felt like it was giving language to something that I had been playing around in, which is, placemaking, the act of making a place. And then it's like something that real estate people do, or that you'll often talk about it in the context of urban planning. And creative placemaking is also sitting within that context of urban planning, of development, but it has a really radical origin. And it really is about um, how do we place make in a way that honors the past, that honors what is already here, and that honors the vision for the future of the community that's already in this place. Not everybody's going to define it that way, but that's something that has felt really true to me. And so, weaving it all together, I did this certification in creative placemaking, exploring just kind of like what we as a society know about leisure and recreation. Really, it's a lot of the stuff that I was just mentioning about how, like, leisure and recreation, we know this is important. Connection to self, spirituality, like being fulfilled on a higher level. We know this is important. And for communities,
play is important to all that too, and
exactly,
like
like,
fun and
and it's
laughter.
designed into, to towns. Like, we have playgrounds, we have recreational areas. And so I wrote my thesis for that certification about creative placemaking and its applications for refugee camps. And this is like a soapbox I could get on for a while. So I'll just say a couple of sentences. But the reason that it felt so interesting, and maybe I will publish that sometime. I got it about 80% to feeling good about publishing it. But what I learned and what it landed for me was just like, we have people right now. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, so I don't have the current numbers. So I'd suggest that folks look up the number of people that are currently displaced, both displaced internally in their own countries and living in refugee camps in the world. It's an enormous number that continues to grow very quickly. But when we talk about that, um, we're talking about transient location, temporary housing, but this is something that people are spending decades, generations of their families, of their lives living in. People are being born in transient locations. They're growing up, they're getting married, they're having children, they're becoming grandchildren. And so the
Mm-hmm.
question that I was really driven by was like, how long do people live in temporary situations before we decide that they too really deserve to have this infrastructure for quality of life that we recognize is critical for people to become the fullest expression of themselves. So I'll stop there, but yeah, that's kind of
I
how
love that. I love
together.
that. And I think it speaks a lot to the coaching you're doing and the kind of clients you're looking for too, when you talk about those kind of interests that you have, because I think it's people that are passionate on that level, they're going to connect with your coaching and want to talk to you about like ways to feel connected to their work or their community in that way, because you can feel your passion when you talk about all these projects. And I can feel your passion for community and, for giving back. And so I love that you're sharing all of this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, really, really fun stuff we're learning here. So, I know that you have some spots open for one-on-one clients coming up. So tell us a little bit about that, what they would expect from that your one-on-one coaching, and then kind of like the kind of person maybe that this might speak to.
Thank you so much for that question, Jen. That's sweet to ask. Yeah, I'm so excited to have some spaces open in my one-on-one coaching. And I guess the first thing that I can say, which is also just kind of true across the board about somatic practice, is that it's a medium-term commitment. Somatics loves repetition, And so it's important when we're taking a somatic approach to transformation to really give yourself time to kind of unravel and unwind and start getting into the practices. So the arc of coaching is 6 months. I work with my clients. I meet them twice or three times a month. And during our sessions, it can look like a lot of things, but often we'll be doing a combination of different somatic visualization and conversation. It can look and feel a lot like inquiry coaching or therapy, but then we have these physical practices and we have these kind of embodiment practices that are, like I said, for the sake of building that somatic awareness of what is happening and priming yourself to have openings. And openings are opportunities once you've kind of dysregulated your conditioned shapes, the moves that are really familiar. Then sometimes you'll notice like space to make a different choice. So we're really getting our reps in. If you think of it like a gym, when we're in session together, we're getting our reps in of somatic practice. And then in between, my clients are doing their own practices on their own, working with fundamental practices that it really depends on the person and it depends on what they're trying to get up to, what those will be. So yeah, that's like one way to come into answering that question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love that. I love the time frame. Can you tell us kind of like maybe for some like previous coaching clients, like after coaching with you, like what are some of the emphases that they've said about your coaching, or like some of the change that they've experienced?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll just share the two things that just popped to mind. One of my clients that I worked with really came in working on conflict, and actually we're still working together. We've entered into another arc together, but at the end of our first arc of working together, one of the things that they said to me was it's interesting, since we really got into the work, I feel like I've started to notice conflict coming up in my life a lot more. But what's coming to me is that maybe it was always there, and that I was in a shape where I just wasn't even able to take it in or see it or react to it. And the thing that's really exciting for me about this report out that they then said was like, and it's interesting because even though now I'm seeing so much more, I'm not as afraid. And there's a part of me that's actually like kind of curious and like excited about like maybe I can do this. So that's a really subtle one. Another one that's really subtle, but was the first thing that came to mind with another client. We were exploring an aspect of their conditioned tendency, of the shape that they have learned in their life. And at the end, this was actually just a free session, a gift session that I offered. And at the end, they said something that really touched me, which was, I think I actually understand what self-compassion is. And I think that I just felt actual compassion for this aspect of myself for the first time in my life. And so those are kind of small, but you can imagine like the ripple of something like that.
I was going to say, it sounds like a block or a barrier that they're able to finally like crumble or
The work
move.
is subtle, and it's one of those things where kind of at the beginning you kind of have a vision of what change could look like, and you feel like, how could I possibly get there? And it's really only in retrospect that you turn around and you're like, oh, like I'm really different than I was at the beginning of committing to 6 months of somatic practice for myself.
Yeah, I love that. Did you say ripple? Because that's what I kept thinking of, like the
Yeah.
ripple effect, and I love that. Okay, love it. I love that. Um, I guess I want to people that are seeking right now, who would be what I guess I just want to like align you with the clients that might want your services right now for your next thing. So I'm thinking of like What kind of people, what kind of things are like clients that would benefit from your practices you think they're seeking right now?
Right now, I think, let's see, like, I
Or
think,
how they're suffering, I guess, or
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that some of my clients are, well, I guess I'll answer it in two ways. There's one way on the nose that a lot of my clients externally like don't seem to be suffering.
Okay.
Like, they actually seem to be doing pretty well. And they are like making, moves in their lives. They're like making decisions that
Seemingly high functioning.
exactly, thanks. Seemingly high functioning and also actively high functioning, but and like if this is you, then you just feel it, but they feel something. They feel like I'm doing everything right, but it's not hitting.
Something's
Sometimes my
missing.
clients are like, they're like, everything is good, but for some reason I struggle to make contact with the enjoyment and the pleasure of this present moment of my life. Like, I actually want to have more contact with what is good because there's so much good, but there's some reason that I'm not enjoying my life as much as I think I should be. Um, some of the other clients that if you're hearing this and this is you, then somatic coaching might be a good fit. Is like, you might have a lot of people that depend on you. Like, perhaps you have a lot of teams that you support, or direct reports, or different groups or programs that you oversee. And you're known as like this pillar of confidence, like a pillar of strength. People really lean on you. Um, but the cost of that is going somewhere. And so whether the cost of that is coming out with your family, or coming out with your friendships, or if it's getting introjected and you're just swallowing it, there's a way that you feel like maybe not completely authentic, because you feel like what people are perceiving about you, that you're not fully aligning to that. So that's another thing that is true for a lot of my clients.
That's why I'm like hearing this, like this misalignment, and I love that. Okay. So, okay,
Yeah.
those are great explanations. Okay, so I ask everybody this who comes on, but what's your go-to self-care when things get hard that kind of helps you reset and get you back to feeling like yourself?
All right. The first one is crying.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way our bodies help regulate ourselves. So crying, I cry. I never cried when I was younger. Like my 20s, never cried, never.
No.
And now I cry like I can't even tell you how many times a day. I'm like, that was a beautiful song. That was a beautiful post. Like silly things. I cry at anything.
That's so relatable. Yeah, people are like, you seem so grounded. And I'm like, I just want you to know that I literally cry like every day. So that, and also spontaneous movement, just
Mm.
throwing on a song, and as much as I can, like letting myself be moved, and try, not overthinking the dance too much.
Yeah, letting your body take it over.
Yeah, and spontaneous movement, as far as I'm concerned, can be dancing, standing, stillness, singing, right? Like any of it, as
Anything.
long as it's what's the urges, then
Expressive.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that. I love that. Those are great. I don't do that as much as I should, but when I do it, I like feel the release. I love that one.
Now that I work so much, like now that I have my business doing somatic coaching, I do it so much more because I find it so important, right, for me to continue to do my practices. So just totally relatable. There was a time when I never did anything like that.
Yeah. And different things fit for different times too, depending on what you're going through. I feel like mine's always changing what's feeling good at the time.
Mhm.
So if someone is listening to this and like, yes, sign me up, where can they find you?
They can send me a message on the contact me on my website, withmollyrose.com. That's the same as my Instagram, with Molly Rose. But yeah, the easiest way that'll always be there is just going and shooting me a message. And if you're interested in coaching, then we'll go ahead and schedule a free 1 hour consultation, just a chance to get to know each other, to learn about the transformation that you're longing for, and whether a somatic approach is really the best fit for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Um, Okay, what is there anything else you wanted to add that I'm missing here? I'm trying to look over my notes I made before
You
you.
know, yeah, just as I'm like thinking about who might be listening to this in the future, we don't get to know when, and just thinking about, people are really up right now. There's a lot to be stressed about, globally. And I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of the time when I'm talking to folks, they're just like really going through it. People are really, really going through it right now. And
Mhm.
so, one other really simple, kind of self-care move that I'll just put out there is orienting. Orienting is something that takes no materials and you can do it anywhere, but it's when you find yourself getting spun up and like very freaked out, looking around, taking a moment, looking around the room that you're in and looking above, to the sides, and behind you, turning from the waist, looking under any desks or door or tables, or surfaces in the room, and getting your eyes on all of the exits and windows in the room. And this is a tool that basically reminds our body that in this present moment, we are actually in a safe environment. Even when we're getting a lot of information that's causing anxiety and worry about what's going to happen in the future, what just happened in the past, what's happening around us. Orienting is a tool that I use all the time, that I use with my clients all the time, to just come back into the room and be like, all right, there's a lot happening right now, but actually, this physical body in this room in this present moment is safe. So just want to give that to whoever might need that right
I
now.
love that. That's like a great way to I love seeing these little tricks on how to like get out of fight or flight mode. You know what I mean? Cuz they're like from someone who like didn't know how to for a long time even recognize that emotions had physical sensations
Mhm.
to like realizing like oh my gosh that's like all of a lot of things that to knowing there's so many little tricks like that that once you can gain like know you're in it you can use these things as soon as you gain the awareness of like I'm in one of those states. Once you work yourself out, there's all these little tricks and things you can do once you find that work for you. And I love that because that's a new one. I've never heard that one before. So thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so you mentioned your website, or sorry, you mentioned Insta
On my website.
and your website. Anything else you ways you any contacts you want to put out there before we go?
Just because people will be listening to it, you can always email me directly at mollyrosecoaching@gmail.com. That's where the contact form on the website goes. And I love to yap. I love connecting with
Me
folks,
too.
especially folks that are interested in what I'm interested in. And as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, we're winding up. Maybe there's one other thing, if you're down, that I would just say about a somatic approach in general for people
Yes.
that are curious, which is like, the thing that I love the most about a somatic approach is that it, like, somatics posits that it's like the book No Bad Parts. Like, there's no fixing and there's nothing wrong with you. Even if the moves that you're making right now um are not having the impact that you want them to be having, we know that all of the strategies for how we show up in the world are just that. They're strategies that have been developed often when we're young for very good reasons, to protect our safety, our belonging, and our dignity. And the more, so like Somatic says, that the more that we can get curious, acknowledge, affirm, and dignify the way that what we're up to makes sense for what we have taken in about how the world works, then transformation just happens. It's like a gestalt perspective too, that like when we really get clear and find a way to touch all parts of the cycle, that change can be effortless because it just happens. And so I feel called to say that because I know, like, and especially for women, like, so many of us have like these beliefs that our emotional expression is too much, that like want too much, that we're too sensitive, that like we should just get over things, or like that our very, or like that we should be more, what's the word? Like more out there, that we should lean in, like that all of the things that we're doing are like ways that we are bad or wrong or like imperfect. And it just, it's not true.
Yeah, there's
Not
like this
true.
hustle. There's also like this like hustle culture where everyone's trying to be all things at one time and trying to do everything perfectly. And there is like this quote that I don't even know where I heard it, but it was like, you can have like everything you've ever wanted. Like that is very possible, but you will never have it at the same time. Like
That's
life
right.
doesn't work that way. Like you can't, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time, So from there, it's like, what do you want to focus on at a time? Like, so I love that. Yeah, well, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation, Molly. You were so fun to talk to, and it's like so relaxed. You just put me in like a peaceful state over here. And you're also reminding me to be more intentional with my words, because that is something like I have ADHD, I have racing thoughts. I'm like the worst texter. And I also like will just say stuff sometimes and I'm like, you know what I mean? But being intentional is very powerful. And so I appreciate you for role modeling that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jen. Yeah, I loved our conversation, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to connect with you, and also, yeah, your audience, whoever's listening.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And we'll put all your links in the show notes, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show again to see what you're up to later. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be great.
Welcome to Empowered Ease, the podcast where we challenge the patriarchy by inspiring women to take ownership of their health, mind, body, and soul. My name is Jen Olinger. I'm your host. I'm a holistic coach, a critical care nurse, and founder of the Moonflower Collective. Each episode, you'll hear from incredible women, healers, health practitioners, coaches, nurses, and pioneers making a difference. Together, we'll delve into their personal stories, the inspiration behind their work, and how women heal and thrive in community. Discover how by uniting our strengths and sharing our journeys, we transform not only ourselves, but the future of health and wellness. So tune in, be inspired, and empower yourself alongside our vibrant community of women. This is Empowered Ease. Let's embark on this journey of communal healing together.